The Galactic Assembly chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian floor. Floating platforms held representatives from 217 spacefaring civilizations. Crystal chandeliers the size of small moons cast rainbow light across faces of every shape and color imaginable. Ambassador Helena Vance stood alone on the central platform. Her simple gray uniform looked almost offensive among the jeweled robes and bioluminescent scales surrounding her. She kept her hands folded behind her back. Her expression revealed nothing. High Chancellor Morvix towered above her on his elevated throne. His forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke. His violet skin rippled with patterns that showed his emotions to anyone who knew how to read them. Right now, those patterns spelled contempt. "The Assembly has reached its decision," Morvix announced. His voice echoed through translation fields in 100 languages. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Assembly. Your species is proven too volatile, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to remain among civilized peoples." A murmur of approval swept through the chamber. The Zelkari delegation clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. The Vorn collective hummed a harmonic chord of agreement. Even the usually neutral Sisterhood of Pale Stars nodded their feathered heads. Helena Vance did not flinch. She did not argue. She simply asked one question. "May I know the specific charges against my people?" Morvix waved a dismissive hand. "Your warlike nature, your aggressive expansion, your refusal to share certain technologies, your insistence on maintaining military forces beyond reasonable defensive needs." He leaned forward, and his patterns shifted to something darker. "Your very existence makes the peaceful species of this galaxy uncomfortable." Helena absorbed this without visible reaction. Around her, she could feel the weight of alien eyes. Some looked at her with hatred. Others showed pity. A few revealed something that might have been shame, quickly hidden. "I understand," she said quietly. "Earth accepts this decision." It surprised them. Morvix had clearly expected protests, threats, or pleas. Instead, the human ambassador simply bowed her head in acknowledgement. "We will withdraw our diplomatic staff within 1 standard rotation," Helena continued. "Our trade agreements will terminate as specified in their original terms. Our ships will exit assembly space through the designated T corridors." She paused and looked up at Morvix with eyes that held something the Chancellor could not quite identify. "I wish the Assembly peace and prosperity in the years to come." Then she turned and walked away. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. The great doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. That was 73 standard years ago, for the first decade. Trade flourished without human competition. Border disputes settled peacefully without human interference. The military budgets of a dozen species dropped to historic lows. For the second decade, things continued smoothly. Humanity had retreated beyond the outer rim, past the dead zone of empty systems that separated civilized space from the unknown. Occasionally, long-range sensors detected human ships moving in the darkness, but they never crossed the boundary. By the 3rd decade, some species had begun to forget that humans had ever existed. Then the silence from the deep void changed. It started with missing survey ships. 3 Zelkari exploration vessels vanished near the galactic edge. Then a Vorn colony ship carrying 40,000 souls simply stopped transmitting. The Assembly sent investigators. They found wreckage, twisted metal and frozen bodies floating in the void. The damage patterns matched nothing in any database. Chancellor Morvix convened an emergency session. By then, 16 more ships had disappeared. A remote mining station had gone dark. Something was out there. Something was coming. The first clear images arrived 3 months later. They came from a Sisterhood scout ship that managed to transmit for 11 seconds before being destroyed. The images showed shapes moving through space. Massive shapes. Crystalline structures that pulsed with inner light. Tendrils of energy that stretched for thousands of kilometers. And at the center of each structure, something that looked horribly like a face. The Assembly named them the Hollow Ones. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody knew what they wanted. But everyone understood what they did. They consumed. The hollow ones fell upon the outer colonies like a plague. Their crystalline bodies absorbed energy and matter with equal hunger. Shields meant nothing to them. Weapons seemed to pass through their forms without effect. They moved through civilizations the way fire moves through dry grass. Chancellor Morvix sent the combined fleet to stop them. 12,000 warships representing every major power in the assembly. The largest military force gathered in 300 years. The battle lasted for hours. 9,000 ships were destroyed. The rest fled in disorder. The Hollow Ones continued their advance without pausing. In the assembly chamber, panic replaced arrogance. Delegates screamed accusations at each other. Some demanded surrender. Others suggested hiding. A few simply fled to their ships and never returned. And through it all, one question kept surfacing in whispered conversations and secret communications. Where are the humans? Ambassador Helena Vance had said Earth accepted the Assembly's decision. She had promised humanity would leave, and they had kept that promise. For 73 years, no human ship had crossed into Assembly space. But now the galaxy burned. Now the civilized species faced extinction. And now, finally, they remembered the people they had cast out, Chancellor. Morvix swallowed his pride and broadcast a message toward the dead zone. A plea, a desperate request for help. He offered apologies. He offered restoration of full membership. He offered anything humanity might want. For 3 long weeks. Nothing came back but silence. Then, on the 22nd day, a single ship appeared at the edge of sensor range. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if it had all the time in the universe. The ship was human, but it looked like nothing the Assembly had ever seen before. Sleek and dark, it seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Strange geometries marked its hull. Energy signatures pulsed in patterns that made Zelkri. Mathematicians weep with confusion. The ship stopped just outside assembly space. It sat there for 1 full day without transmitting anything. Then a message arrived. Voice only. A woman's voice, calm and measured. This is Admiral Helena Vance of the Terran Sovereignty. We received your transmission. In the assembly chamber, delegates held their breath. Humanity remembers how we were dismissed. We remember being called dangerous. We remember being told our existence made others uncomfortable. The silence stretched painfully. We will listen to what you have to say. But understand this clearly. We are not the species you cast out 73 years ago. We have changed. We have grown. And we have built things in the darkness that you cannot imagine. The message ended, and across the galaxy, the surviving civilizations realized that their greatest hope might also be their greatest fear. The reckoning, the diplomatic shuttle carrying. Chancellor Morvix crossed into human space for the first time in 7 decades. His 4 hands gripped the armrests of his seat. Violet patterns of fear rippled across his skin. He had insisted on coming himself. The assembly needed to see that their leader was willing to humble himself. More importantly, Morvix needed to understand what humanity had become. The shuttle passed through a checkpoint guarded by vessels that defied conventional design. They looked grown rather than built. Living metal that shifted and reformed as he watched. Weapons systems that registered as impossible on Zelkari scanning technology. Beyond the checkpoint, a station waited. It orbited a dead star, drawing power from the cosmic corpse through methods the shuttle's computers could not identify. The station itself stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Lights blazed from countless windows. Ships of every size moved around it like insects around a hive. Morvix realized he was looking at a city. A city in space, built by the species his assembly had thrown away. The shuttle docked without ceremony. Human guards escorted him through corridors filled with activity. Children ran past laughing. Workers discussed technical problems in languages he could not follow. Life continued around him as if his presence meant nothing. Finally, he reached a simple conference room. Admiral Helena Vance waited there. She looked older than he remembered. Gray touched her hair. Lines marked her face. But her eyes held the same unreadable quality they had shown 73 years ago. She did not rise when he entered. She did not offer traditional greetings. Chancellor, she said simply. Sit, he sat. The Hollow Ones have destroyed 47 of your worlds, Helena stated. They have killed approximately 18 billion sentient beings. Your combined fleet is scattered. Your industrial capacity is crippled. At current rates of advance, they will reach your core systems within 6 months. Morvix forced himself to speak. We know. That is why we come to you. You come to us because you have no other choice. Yes, he lowered his head. We were wrong to expel humanity. We were wrong to fear you. We ask for your help now, knowing we have no right to ask. Helena studied him for a long moment. The silence stretched between them. What do you know about the Hollow Ones? She finally asked. Very little. They appeared without warning. They cannot be destroyed by conventional weapons. They consume everything in their path. Helena nodded slowly. We know considerably more. She touched a control on the table. A holographic image appeared. A hollow one, captured in perfect detail. Its crystalline structure rotated slowly, revealing patterns within patterns. They are not natural beings, Helena explained. They are weapons. Created millions of years ago by a civilization that no longer exists. They were designed to eliminate competing species, to sterilize galaxies. Morvix stared at the image with fresh horror. They were dormant, Helena continued, sleeping in the void between galaxies. Something woke them. Our scientists believe it was the energy signature from your assembly's expansion. You grew too bright. You attracted their attention. Can they be stopped? Helena's expression did not change. Perhaps. She touched another control. New images appeared. Human ships, but stranger than the ones he had seen at the checkpoint. These vessels seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. They flickered between solid and transparent. Weapons bristled from holes that seemed to extend into dimensions he could not perceive. During our exile, we did not sit idle, Helena said. We had 73 years with no obligations, no treaties, no assembly rules limiting our research. We explored technologies that civilized species considered forbidden. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the dead star pulsed with stolen light. We learned to harvest energy from dimensional rifts. We developed weapons that attack the quantum bonds holding matter together. We built ships that can exist partially outside normal space. She turned back to face him. We became everything you accused us of being. Morvix understood. The assembly had cast out humanity for being dangerous. And in response, humanity had made themselves more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Will you help us? He asked. That depends on what you are offering. Anything. Everything. Full restoration of membership. A permanent seat on the High Council. Access to all assembly technology and resources. Alina shook her head slowly. We do not want membership in your assembly. Morvix blinked in confusion. Then what? We want recognition of human sovereignty over all territories we have claimed during our exile. We want the right to determine our own alliances and conflicts without assembly interference. We want acknowledgement that Earth answers to no galactic authority. That would make you independent of the assembly entirely. Yes. Morvix considered this. Part of him wanted to refuse. Part of him recognized that pride had already cost the galaxy too much. And if we agree, Helena returned to her seat, then we will fight the Hollow Ones, not for the assembly. Not for gratitude or forgiveness. We will fight because these creatures threaten the galaxy that contains Earth. We protect our home. We always have. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Morvix argued, pleaded, and bargained. Helena remained calm throughout, never raising her voice, never showing frustration. In the end, she got everything she wanted. On the 4th day, the human fleet moved. Morvix watched from the observation deck of his shuttle as ships emerged from hidden places throughout human space. Hundreds of vessels, then thousands, an armada that dwarfed anything the assembly had ever assembled. At the head of the fleet flew a ship larger than most space stations. Its name was painted across the hull in letters visible from orbit. Sovereignty, Admiral, Helena Vance commanded from its bridge. Her voice carried across every communication channel in the fleet. To all ships, this is the Admiral. We spent 73 years preparing for a threat the galaxy did not believe existed. Today we proved that humanity's exile was the greatest mistake the Assembly ever made. The fleet entered dimensional drive. Space twisted around them. Stars blurred and vanished. The war to save civilization had begun. The return the Hollow Ones had gathered around Zelkari Prime. 17 of the crystalline entities floated in orbit around the terrified world. Below them, 8 billion Zelkari waited for death. They had already consumed 3 continents. Cities that had stood for millennia were now empty craters. The screams of the dying had faded into silence. Only the capital remained, protected by shields that flickered and weakened with each passing hour. Then the sky split open. The human fleet emerged from dimensional space in perfect formation. Thousands of ships appearing simultaneously, their dark holes blocking out the stars. At their center, the sovereignty dominated the battlefield like a mountain among hills. Admiral Helena Vance surveyed the enemy positions. 17 Hollow Ones. Each one had destroyed entire fleets by itself. Together, they represented more destructive power than any force in recorded history. All ships, she announced. Execute pattern Omega. The human fleet moved with synchronized precision. Ships broke into smaller groups, each one targeting a specific Hollow One. They did not charge blindly. They circled, probed, tested. The Hollow Ones responded. Crystalline tendrils lashed out, carrying enough energy to vaporize conventional warships. But human ships flickered between dimensions, allowing the attacks to pass through empty space. First wave, Helena ordered. Fire. Weapons designed in 73 years of exile unleashed their fury. Beams that existed partially outside normal space struck crystalline structures. Quantum disruption torpedoes detonated against energy matrices. And for the first time, the Hollow Ones screamed. The sound carried through vacuum on frequencies that should not have been possible. It was a sound of pain, of surprise, of something that had never been hurt before suddenly discovering vulnerability. One hollow, one cracked. Fissures spread across its crystalline body. Light bled from the wounds. The entity convulsed, twisted, finally shattered into a million sparkling fragments. The Zelkari watching from below could not believe what they saw. Continue engagement, Helena said calmly. All units maintain pressure. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fell. Brave crews died fighting things from Nightmare. But the Hollow Ones fell faster. One by one, the ancient weapons broke apart under sustained assault. When 12 had been destroyed, remaining 5 attempted something new. They merged. Crystalline structures flowed together, combining into a single massive entity that dwarfed even the sovereignty. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported. The merged entity is gathering energy. Readings are off the scale. Helena watched the creature pulse with gathering power. If it released that energy, it would destroy the planet below. 8 billion lives. The entire Zelkari civilization. All ships, she said. Fall back to safe distance. The fleet retreated. The merged Hollow One continued building power. Its light grew brighter than the system's sun. Helena made a decision. Signaled the fleet. I am taking the sovereignty in alone. Her bridge crew stared at her in shock. Admiral, her first officer, protested. That's suicide, perhaps. Helena touched the control that would release command to her second. But this ship carries weapons we have never tested. Weapons we hoped we would never need to use. She looked at her crew, the people who had served with her through exile and preparation. Get clear. If this works, you will know. If it fails, she smiled slightly. Tell Earth we tried. Sovereignty moved forward alone. Its dimensional drives activated, pushing the massive vessel into a state between existence and void. Weapon systems that drew power directly from the fabric of reality. Self-charged 2 levels never before attempted. The merged Hollow One noticed the approaching ship. It turned its attention away from the planet. Energy tendrils reached out to consume this final annoyance. Helena. Vance had spent 73 years preparing for this moment. Fire everything. Sovereignty became a sun. Energy poured from every weapon mount, every dimensional aperture, every system that could generate destructive force. The beam that struck the Hollow One was not light, not plasma, not any conventional weapon. It was a tear in reality itself. The merged entity tried to adapt. It shifted frequencies, altered its crystalline matrix, drew on reserves of power accumulated over millions of years. But the human weapon was not attacking its body, it was attacking its existence. The Hollow One began to unravel. Its merged form separated. The crystalline structures lost cohesion. For one eternal moment, the creature hung in space, a dying god struggling against oblivion. Then it was gone. Not destroyed, erased, removed from reality as if it had never been. The sovereignty drifted. Systems burned out, hull cracked in bleeding atmosphere. Helena lay on her bridge, blood running from her ears, barely conscious but alive and victorious. The aftermath took months. Human engineers helped rebuild what the Hollow Ones had destroyed. Medical ships treated the wounded. Counselors helped the traumatized. Chancellor Morvix came to visit Helena in the hospital station, where she recovered. He brought gifts from every species in the assembly, tokens of gratitude that filled 3 cargo holds. Helena accepted them politely. "The assembly wishes to honor you," Morvix said. "We want to name you Supreme Commander of all combined forces, the highest military position in galactic history." Helena shook her head. "I appreciate the gesture," she said. "But my people have learned something during our exile. We learned that we do not need your approval. We do not need your positions or your honors." She looked out the window at the stars. Humanity will continue on its own path. We will be neighbors, perhaps allies, when interests align. But we will never again be subordinates. Morvix understood. He had seen what humanity could do when pushed. He had no desire to see what they might become if pushed again. "Then what will you do now?" he asked. Helena smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had shown in decades. "We will explore. We will build. We will protect what we love." She turned back to face him. "We will be human." The Terran sovereignty grew stronger in the years that followed. They pushed deeper into unknown space, building new colonies, discovering new wonders. Sometimes they've worked with assembly species. Sometimes they worked alone. But they never forgot the lesson they had learned. The galaxy had tried to cast humanity aside. They had tried to diminish a species they considered too dangerous, too unpredictable, too proud, and humanity had responded by becoming exactly what the galaxy feared. Not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because that was simply who they were. In the end, the stars themselves learned to respect the children of Earth, not because humanity demanded respect, but because they had earned it in darkness and exile. Through blood and sacrifice, they had proven that some fires cannot be extinguished. They had proven that humanity would always find a way, and across the galaxy. Whenever someone asked about the species that had saved them all, the answer was always the same. Never underestimate the humans. They remember everything, and they never give up. The celebration halls of Zelkari Prime overflowed with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Music from 100 worlds mingled in the warm night air. Lights danced across rebuilt towers that had risen from the ashes of destruction. Children played in streets that had once been graveyards. 3 years had passed since the last Hollow One fell. Admiral Helena Vance stood on a balcony overlooking the festivities. She wore civilian clothes for the first time in decades, a simple blue dress that reminded her of Earth's oceans. Her hands rested on the railing as she watched the celebration below. Commander Sarah Chen joined her. The younger woman had served as Helena's first officer throughout the war. Now she commanded her own vessel, exploring regions of space that no human had ever seen. "You should be down there," Sarah said. "They are celebrating you." Helena shook her head. "They are celebrating survival." "I just happen to be useful," Sarah laughed softly. Modest as always. She stood beside her mentor and watched the crowds. The assembly voted today. They want to create a permanent memorial to humanity, a station at the site where the sovereignty made its final stand. "I heard," Chancellor Morvix says, "it will be the largest structure ever built, a reminder for all future generations of what humanity sacrificed." Helena turned to look at her former officer. What do you think about that? Sarah considered the question carefully. I think monuments are for the dead. We are still very much alive. Helena smiled. It was the right answer. Below them, a group of Zelkari children ran past carrying human flags. They waved them proudly, laughing and shouting words in broken English they had learned from human teachers. 3 years ago, these same children had hidden in shelters, waiting for death. Now they celebrated life with symbols of the species that had saved them. The Council of Elders wants to speak with you tomorrow, Sarah continued. They have a proposal. Another one. This one is different. They want to establish a joint academy. Human and alien students learning together. Military tactics, diplomacy, science, art, a place where the next generation can grow without the prejudices of the old. Helena felt something stir in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or something close to it. That sounds worth discussing. The night deepened around them. Stars emerged one by one, pinpricks of light in the vast darkness. Somewhere out there, human ships continued their exploration. They pushed deeper into unknown territories, mapping new systems, making contact with civilizations that had never heard of the Galactic Assembly. The universe was larger than anyone had imagined, and humanity intended to see all of it. A soft chime interrupted their contemplation. Helena touched the communication device on her wrist. A familiar face appeared in holographic miniature. Admiral, said Ambassador James Okoro. He had taken over diplomatic duties after Helena retired from active command. I apologize for disturbing your evening. What is it, James? We received a transmission from deep space. It's very deep. Beyond anything our current expeditions have reached. Helena felt her pulse quicken slightly. What kind of transmission? A greeting. In mathematical language, whoever sent it wants to make contact. Sarah and Helena exchanged glances. The Hollow Ones had been weapons created by an ancient civilization. That civilization was long dead, but the galaxy was old. Very old. Who knew what else waited in the darkness between stars? Is it hostile? Helena asked. Known. But the message includes something interesting. A symbol we recognize. James transmitted the image. Helena studied it carefully. Her breath caught. It was a human handprint. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. Humans have never traveled that far. Helena stared at the symbol. Her mind raced through possibilities. Ancient colony ships lost to history. Time distortions that had scattered human explorers across the cosmos. Or something stranger. Something beyond current understanding. James, she said slowly, assemble a response team. I want our best linguists, scientists, and diplomats. Admiral, you're retired. I'm unretiring. Helena straightened her shoulders. Prepare my ship. Sarah stepped forward. Helena, you earned your rest. Let someone else handle this. Helena looked at her former officer with eyes that still held fire despite her years. Sarah, somewhere out there is a mystery connected to humanity. A handprint in the void. Someone, or something, knows about us. Has perhaps been waiting for us. She smiled. Did you really think I could ignore that? Sarah knew better than to argue. She had served under Helena Vance for too long. I suppose I'm coming with you. I would be disappointed if you didn't. Within a week, a small fleet gathered at the edge of known space. The Sovereignty, too, led the formation. Helena had refused to let them rename it. The original ship had been recovered and repaired, its hull still bearing scars from the final battle. Those scars were left untouched. They told a story that no polish could improve. Chancellor Morvix came to see them off. His violet pattern showed concern mixed with admiration. You could send others, he said. You have given enough. Helena clasped his hand in the human fashion. Over 3 years, she had taught him this gesture. He had come to value it. Giving is not something that runs out, she replied. The more you give, the more you have to give. Morvix did not fully understand, but he nodded anyway. May the stars guide you safely home. The fleet jumped into dimensional space. Reality twisted around them. Stars stretched into lines of light and then vanished entirely in the quiet of transit. Helena sat in her command chair and thought about the journey that had brought her here. 73 years of exile, a war against impossible enemies, the salvation of a galaxy that had once rejected her people, and now this, a new mystery. A human symbol in the unreachable depths of space. She remembered something her grandfather had told her as a child. He had been a fisherman on the coast of what was once called Portugal. He had spent his life watching the ocean, learning its moods and secrets. The sea never runs out of surprises, he had said. Just when you think you know everything, it shows you something new. Space was the same, an ocean without shores. A darkness filled with wonders waiting to be discovered. Helena Vance did not know what waited at the end of this journey. She did not know if the handprint was a greeting or a warning. She did not know if humanity would find friends or enemies in the deep void. But she knew one thing, with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. They would face it with courage, with curiosity, with the stubborn determination that had carried them. Through exile and war, they would face it as humans. It's always had. With their eyes open and their hearts unafraid, the stars blurred past. The fleet pushed deeper into the unknown. And somewhere ahead in the vast darkness between galaxies, something waited. Something that had left a human handprint as a message. Something that wanted to be found. Next chapter of humanity's story was about to begin, and it would be the greatest adventure of all.